All right, Ben. So, you and I were talking a minute ago about your focus, which, you know, there's the team events in CrossFit, there's masters events, there's different age groups, I should say. That's a better way of
Yep.
describing it. And then you have individual or open bracket. And, you and I both have experience in many different realms. And I want to dive into business, of course. But before we dive into business, I wanted to talk about the sport of fitness, which, for a lot of people listening, a lot of gym owners, it is a piece, right? And I think 10 years ago is probably a bigger piece than
Yeah, for
5 years
sure.
ago. And I think it's
When I first met you, it was a bigger piece.
a bigger piece.
Yep.
So I am curious though, with the games just being individuals, so that's what it's slated for this year. And with Rich kind of doing his own team thing, I want to just start off right off the bat. Where do you see the CrossFit Games? What do you think it's going to be like this year? And then what do you think is going to happen for future? Do you think we're even going to go back to Madison or what do you think is going to happen? I'm really curious.
Yeah, well, to answer those questions really specifically, yes, I think we will go back to Madison. I would prefer we didn't. I am not a fan. I love the town, do not like the venue. I feel like the games took a really conservative turn when we went to Madison. It seems like a very glorified regionals. It's like so climate controlled, so indoors, so on the campus. When we were in California, whether it's Aromas or like when you were doing it, it was like you didn't know if we were going to the mountains. You didn't know if we were going to do like the big beach. We didn't know if like Microwave Mountain and like that triathlon, like epic, right? Like
Epic.
Like the epicness to me has been diminished. So now we do like a cyclocross. Now we do like another swim paddle event. It's in that instance, I feel like it's gotten way more controlled and way more knowable. The fact we're going back to Romas this year, I feel like Castro now has been like foaming at the mouth to be able to like, and here's the cool part about this is like going back to Romas. Like I've run events and it's hard. The more people you have, the more logistically constrained you are. So I understand it. Like he's programming for all, as you just mentioned, all of these different age groupers, all of these teams and all of these individuals. Well, now you take all those off and it's 30 guys, 30 girls. Like, holy crap. Like it just opens up Pandora's box of what's available. Like, you have one of the most epic stories ever in the history of CrossFit Games with that first, like at the year after it was the year after you won, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the very first event was the 6K trail run at the time or something like that.
I mean, let's not it was 7K, I think.
You're right. And like the stumbling and then you coming back and like dominating the deadlift ladder with no rep. I mean, just that epicness of like the games used to be like, can you survive it? Which you could like, I'm sure if there's a players union and like someday that they'll put constraints around that and like make sure that the players have safety, but from a fan and from a coaching perspective, God, I love the craziness aspect of it. I feel like we're going to get a lot more of that because logistics aren't constraining anymore. It's super cool.
Yeah. With the reduction in, my take on it was, and this is just my opinion, would have been, don't call it the CrossFit Games. This is just my take. Mm-hmm. Don't call it the CrossFit Games and crowning the fittest on earth because you're pigeonholing yourself for haters to hate. Meaning all you could have said is, hey guys, the CrossFit Games are being put on hold this year, just like the Olympics, but we're going to host an invitational for these top 20, top 30 athletes. And I think you could have alleviated a lot of the, look, do I think the top 20 or 30 in the open would have won anyway, statistically? Yeah, probably. But is there some guy that comes out of a national championship out of Africa that might be able to win? You never know. So I kind of see both sides of it, but regardless, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think you could have a lot. This is going to be pretty epic.
If the goal is to cast a wide enough net to get the big fish through, I think the podium came through the open, right? I think the podium is still there. You could really have a great argument for 7 through 21, and the order would probably get all mixed matched if you were allowed to bring in the other sanctional winners. It's kind of funny the way it did pan out, but all the big names did get in. I don't think there's a big name that didn't. It was kind of crazy because it brings validity to the process that they're using. But the other thing with that, if they don't call it the CrossFit Games, they don't crown fittest on earth with this one. Well, then there goes the legitimacy of like them calling it that in the beginning years too, because in the beginning years, it was only a small handful of athletes as well. There was no qualifying process. There was no huge wide net. It was literally just kind of like
Yeah.
um, the
Come to the
fittest.
ranch.
It was the
Yeah.
fittest people that could make it to the ranch and knew about this thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair argument too, right? I mean,
And like,
look,
what's crazy about that one too, is
yeah.
like that worked too, because like you won it that year and you continue to dominate in the sport. So it's not like there was like this, maybe I give you a lot of credit because you won super early and you, for lack of a better term, like stuck around the podium. It's like,
Thanks.
so that's a lot of like validity to like what they were doing. I know
Yeah.
like some of the earlier ones, like Jolie Gentry and stuff like that, like were like one and dones, but
Yeah, I'm excited to see you go back to the ranch. I am curious what's going to happen with, how the overall appeal though from the age groups and the masters, and maybe that's just not it's CrossFit's direction, and that's fine, right? Like it's no problem. I just think that, over the last couple of years, um, 12, 13, 14, 15 at the Home Depot Center was just epic. I mean, dude, those are some great years. And
yes.
moving to Madison, and where do you think the sport's going to go? Do you think other events such as Wadapalooza or whatnot? Now, speak about logistically. Oh my gosh, Wadapalooza has it tough with 5,000 competitors.
Right?
Yeah, but where do you see the from a sport perspective? Where do you think it's going to go? You think there's going to be more events that pop up, and maybe the games will become a little less prevalent? I'm just curious.
Yeah. This is just my take as a coach and person that's been around the sport for a little while, just like yourself. So I don't have any insight into what HQ is doing or anything else. But it's a great question. It's fun to talk about. I think this hurt the age groupers. Emotionally hurt the age groupers, and the hard truth of that is from from a event standpoint. If you've ever been to the CrossFit Games, the unfortunate part is like people aren't going to watch the masters and the teenagers. That's the unfortunate truth. Now,
Right.
It's all of their friends, family, their people from their gym. It's a few hundred people. There's tens of thousands watching the individuals, and so I do think that there's going to be something else that rises up out of the ashes to help support the teens and the masters, because they are a huge, particularly the masters. We pulled some numbers. I think it's 54% of open registrants are masters. So over half of the competitive sport is masters athletes. So for them to kind of just ignore them, I think is a massive miscalculation. But at the same time, what they might be doing is just allowing another thing to pop up and help support them.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. I was talking to a buddy of mine. I was like, oh yeah, CrossFit, removed the age bracket. And someone's like, man, I think this was their words. Oh, maybe that's foolish, because there's no better marketing than seeing a 50-year-old jacked and tan at a party, and someone says, hey, what are you doing? They're like, oh, CrossFit, right? So, and you don't want them to start feeling a little bit maybe broken from CrossFit to say, oh yeah, I do functional training, right? You want them to still scream from the hilltops about the brand. But yeah, the future will be, what it is, right? We'll see how it goes, and I think something will pop up. But switching gears a little bit from the games, because I me, I love talking about the business of fitness. You have CrossFit New England. You are also a partner at Tilt, and I'm curious. You and I spoke at Wadapalooza, and we've spoken on the phone since then a lot. Yep. But I'm curious from like where are you guys at in your business in this journey? Because you were one of the, early on, before you were mandated to close, you chose to close. I guess I'll start there. Do you think that was still a good idea looking back on it now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that I don't know this, but I believe we were the first CrossFit gym in the United States to close. And the way I look at this is I kind of run my business off of principles. And the idea is that what we are trying to do at a really high level is get people fit, keep people healthy, and we create a guideposts and a mission statement, things that we're really driving towards. And they're so far from just words to put on a poster or to write down into a training manual.
Hmm.
You know, what we're trying to do is build a family of humble, hungry, happy people who kick ass in their 90s. Well, when you put that into perspective and lay that over the top of what's going on, what we're experiencing right now with these really weird, strange times, when we realized, because Massachusetts was hit hard and hit early, there was a Biogen conference that 9 people came out of super early. People in the town next to us were getting sick, and they closed one of the schools. It was a Thursday right before St. Patty's Day. It was like March 13th or 14th, somewhere around there. And that was basically when the world kind of ended. Tom Hanks got, got
Right,
it that
right.
Tuesday or something like that. And by Monday or Tuesday, Tom Hanks had it. And by Thursday, the world had completely changed. We made the decision to close because it's the health of our members that come above all of this. And we are willing to withstand the short-term economic hit. And here's the deal is when I came public with this, that we're closing down, I can't, a lot of people were like, well, you can, because you can afford it. This is so separate from the economics of this thing. We're a CrossFit gym just like everybody else is. We don't have like 8 months of saved up cash flow that can just like sit there and like, we're cool, whatever. We had to make really, really hard strategic decisions to try to make ourselves be able to survive this thing. And it was super scary. It was super emotional. I thought we were going to lose the business for, about a week. But that doesn't cloud the fact that that closing the gym to me was the right decision. We make really, really we make really hard and fast, like lines in the sand. This is what we're going to do way ahead of time. So what we say is the most important thing in our organization is our team. By far and away, it's our number one thing is taking care of our employees. Number two is taking care of our members. Number three is the community. That's both the community that we live in and the CrossFit community at large. Number four is our partners. And number five is profit. Well, when you do it like that, the health of our members and coaches were at risk. Okay, I get that. But we could stay open and kind of like make our way through this from an economic perspective. It does no. One of our other principles is be overly responsive and responsible. That means like when this thing happens, you got to be overly responsible. It means right away, right when it happens, close the doors. Overly responsive. And then from there, overly responsible. So what that means is what we figured out was, it's kind of funny when we look back on this thing, but we thought this was all going to happen in 2-week increments. Do you remember that?
Yeah. You and I were talking about it.
Yeah. So we closed the gym. We're like for 2 weeks and we're going to keep paying our staff for.
Yeah. And here we are 9 weeks later.
Yeah. 9 weeks later. Exactly. So that was our two things. Be overly responsive. Let's close down now. If there's a chance that somebody might get sick, let's close down now. And then from there, let's be overly responsible and let's continue to pay our coaches. We stopped everyone's membership that day. Like no one paid right then. So, when this thing went for longer than 2 weeks, we knew we'd be able to make it through the 2 weeks financially doing that. When we came really quickly, the world changed and we knew it's going to be a lot longer than 2 weeks. That's where it got really stressful because we wanted to continue to do the right thing, but we also didn't want to lose the business. So we had to make some pivots along the way.
Yeah. And I think you talk about doing the right thing. I think that's really an interesting term to use, right? Because are you doing the wrong thing? Like what is the right thing is something that I've struggled with, right? And just because you might deliver challenging news doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. You're looking out for the future of your business. And so for us, when you and I were talking, it's like you closed, I'll start here and then I'm going to come back on the money thing, but let's just start here. You closed preemptively because you felt for your safety of your members and your staff. Okay, understood, got that. Now, so if my question, I'm sure other gym owners are probably thinking the same thing. If you placed your personal opinion, right, of safety, because it is your personal opinion, like I don't feel like there's safety, I'm going to shut down. I don't disagree with you, right? But now when the government says you could reopen, let's just say it's next week, right?
Yep.
How do you place your personal perspective to reopen or you're going to use the state guidelines now? I'm curious how that works. Because if you didn't use the state guidelines to close, are you going to use them to reopen?
We're not going to use them to reopen.
Okay.
Yeah. The government doesn't, it's similar to this. If I didn't feel like this was a real thing, I'd be doing a lot to try to keep my business open during this, but I do think it's a real thing. I know 6 people that have died from the coronavirus. So I know my neighbor works in a COVID unit. Like we're seeing this firsthand. Like people, we've had, I think it's 6,000 people in Massachusetts have died from this thing. This is not like a small thing to me. Now, I understand that other people have not been affected by it. They don't know anyone. It's not real. It's like, it's media, it's politics. I get that. I totally get it. If I was to reopen and one of my members got sick, that's a hard thing for me to kind of swallow. So it's not a matter for me of what the government says. Of course, we're using government as a guidepost. We closed before the government said. We use schools as basically way more. I think schools are doing a much better job of this than the government are. Because government.
Yeah, sorry. So if you said you're not going to use the government, you'll use it as a guide, of course, right?
I get that. Yep.
But okay, let's just say 2 weeks from now, COVID cases seem to be under control. Then do you feel like? And I think this is a really important question to ask you. I'm not trying to like put you on the spot, but I kind of am because we chose to go off state and federal guidelines. And we are not opening our gyms for a variety of reasons, but mainly because we're not allowed to legally, right?
Yeah.
And when we are allowed to legally, then we might push it out a little bit, just to make sure we clearly communicate, blah, 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 blah. But let's just say you could open up tomorrow. How long do you think after that you'd feel comfortable with opening, regardless of the business side? Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be off of the things you just said. It'd be off like the number of cases in Massachusetts, the flattening of the curve, and all of the rest. It's the same reason I closed before they did, is because you're exactly right. You said that the word you used there was right. It was feel. Now people are like, well, what the hell? Like, how can you? People discredit the feel. Like, your gut feeling should drive the majority of decisions you make as a business owner. There is the limbic brain. There is the amygdala. There's a prefrontal cortex. You can't just go off of one piece of information, which is the completely logical decision. Like, when you get a bad feeling, like someone wants to be hired by you, they meet all the requirements. They have like their resume is through the roof. Their references are to the nines. They are the most accomplished coach you could ever possibly hire. But you have this gut feeling that they're just not right.
Right. It's probably not the best. No, it's probably not the
You're
right
going to go
fit.
off of your feeling, your gut. So it's the same thing. The government says, this is what it is. This is where you are. This is what you can do. Before they said you could be open. And we said no, because it doesn't feel right. Now I get that that's touchy-feely. It's soft. It's gray. It doesn't make sense. That's the way I
appreciate it, man. Like, you're saying it like it is. And you and I have a little bit different perspectives there, and I'm okay with that, right? In this particular case, right, we are, well, let me ask you this question. Do you see yourself opening July 1st?
I don't know. Probably not. I think that the way it's scheduled right now is we're last. So in Massachusetts, they do 4 phases and gyms are last.
Yeah. Same in California. There's 3 phases and we're last too.
So the third phase, though, the weird one, is athletic fields. So if we do parking lot workouts, are we an athletic field? So we will, I mean, people are dying to get back to the gym. Like, I get it. Like, people want to get back. I want to get back to the gym. I miss people so much. So we'll phase in, like I think most people are doing, is like with parking lot workouts outside. We have a huge parking lot. We have street parking. It's already lined off 6 feet apart. We can figure out the running loop. So the respiratory thing that people are talking about with the vapor trail, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We'll take as many precautions as we can, and we will phase it in. July 1st, we will not be in the gym. Hopefully we're doing parking lot workouts by then.
Okay. And so when it comes to financials, you shut down, you paid all your people for 2 weeks, and, you're fortunate enough to do that. We did something-ish. And then at some point, right, we had to kind of draw a line in the sand. And our line in the sand was, if someone's working, we will pay them. If someone's not working, we can't pay them. And the reason why I felt that way is that there was resentment being built up in the ranks, because what was happening is you had some people maybe on our digital platforms, or maybe coaching some Zoom, whatever, right? Or Facebook, whatever, that they were working. And then you had other people that weren't working, and we were paying everybody the same. And so resentment was getting built up because they were saying,
that's communism.
Yeah. Like, what's going on? Right. And so that was one of the reasons why we drew a line in the sand and said, hey, look, if someone's working, we're going to pay them. If someone's not, unfortunate to put them on furlough. We will continue to pay their health benefits, or they could take PTO. There's a variety of things we did. How did that process look like for you? And then moving forward, we put everybody on hold. I know you did too. So we aligned there. Then we asked people to opt in if they want. They had to tell us. We didn't bucket everybody, keep charging them. We chose that they had to tell us what they wanted. We had two options really, which was, keep paying your current membership. We're going to refund it to you once we reopen, like basically credit you, or pay $40 a month for just our digital products. What did you guys do from a financial perspective after the hold? And then what did you guys do from your staff perspective?
Yeah, super consistent with what you did, which is so funny because when we were talking, when this thing first started, it seemed like you were doing something and I was doing something else. But like in the long run, we're both doing, it's the same thing. So people that are working, we continue to pay, we're paying them 100%. People that aren't working went on furlough. And they're still on benefits and all the rest. Yeah. That is employees. That's exactly what we did.
And you almost had to, though, just to be fair to us. It wasn't a good time, right? Yeah. But if you didn't,
we tried, and we didn't just go like, right to that. We went to a bunch of different things. We went from like 75% pay, 50% pay for everybody, half work hours for everybody, and it's just like in this time, like certain people just didn't have any work hours, and other people we were looking for more capacity. So what we did was exactly what you did. And the way it ended up was all of our coaches are back full-time, getting paid 100%. All of our coaches, all of our admin are furloughed.
And looking back on it, again, I want to look back 2 months ago. Would you have done it different? So you chose to pay people for 2 weeks and then maybe even 70%. We did, I want to say we did like 10 days for everybody. And then based on certain things, we had like PTO, this and that. I think we made the right decision. I think we did what was right especially the part-timers. But looking back on it for you, would you have done it the way you did? Or do you think you would have hypothetically cut it off a little earlier to save cash and these people sell opportunities of unemployment? Looking back, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, but hindsight's 2020. If we knew exactly what this was going to be, but we didn't. So we were trying to like keep people as invested and as protected as they could along the way. Okay. So it was basically like when we went from these like this is going to happen in 2-week increments to like, hey, this we're looking at like let's talk about this in months, or now we're talking about this in like seasons. So people are like, is it going to come back in the fall type thing? School's shutting down. Like it's a seasonal thing now. So once it got to like stretched out enough, that's where we made the hard and fast because we wanted consistency. We didn't want to keep coming back and like changing things up every X number of weeks.
Right. Because that's not fair for you or for the staff, right? Because then they don't know. And so let's talk about that real quick. So with COVID maybe being a seasonal thing, this and that, who knows, right? Yeah, no one knows. Vaccine, this, that. In your opinion, do you think that the fitness space, let's just talk about like traditional CrossFit gyms, and I have my own opinions on this, are changed forever in terms of digital? What do you think the role of virtual plays in terms of the new form of brick and mortar moving forward?
So I think the CrossFit space has been rattled. I think this is a massive hit to small businesses that are run as hobbies. And because they're run as hobbies, not as professional gyms, people don't take as much. They don't give as much attention to their financials, as much fiscal responsibility as they might otherwise do if they were kind of running this as a real business beyond like a hobby play, a lifestyle business. So I think I mean, if this thing goes, everyone got like a nice little benefit from the government, surge that they infuse in the economy with the payroll protection and things like that. But outside of that, the government can't just keep on printing money. So I think that CrossFit gyms are going to take a hit for sure. And then the ones that survive are obviously the ones that are going to be doing digital in the interim. So they continue to charge a membership. And then the question comes, which is what you're asking, which is a good one, is does digital stick and stay? Is digital a part of the business model going forward? Here's my guess at this. And the answer is no. Because kind of like every Globo gym in every town doesn't have digital spin classes. Because there's one monster in the space that does it so well They have the best coaches, the best technology, the best platform in the world. And there's no regional or loyalty in any which way to your home coach or home gym on digital, because people are just going to navigate
Right.
in the real world. It's like, this gym's 3 miles from my house, so I'm going to go there.
Right.
I love those coaches, so I'm going to go there. I have a relationship with them. In the digital space, it's going to strip down all the barriers, and you can go anywhere, and everyone's going to go. So I think there will be a couple of providers that come out of this. Maybe it's NCFIT that come out of this like head and shoulders above everybody else, and other people can't compete in space.
Yeah.
So my answer is, but the long answer is, yes, digital will come out of this, but not as a business model for regular CrossFit affiliates.
So I want to just shine light. Maybe I could help summarize or share my insight. I agree with you. I think that the gyms have used virtual as a bridge, a means to an end, get us from point A to point B. And then when you get back in the brick and mortar, rightfully so, right? But I'm very concerned for gym owners that want to put virtual at the top of their list for things that make them special when they're not competitive. They don't have a competitive advantage. You know, I'm sure you talk about this all the time with your athletes, but for me, I always think like, what are my unique characteristics that we're uniquely good at that are going to allow us to win, right? Become, uniquely good at in a business. And, you and I have been doing brick and mortar for a decade, and we've had a digital play for a long time, but let's just take the regular gym owner. They've been focused on brick and mortar. It'd be like if if Peloton wanted to go open up brick and mortar, they're not going to be able to compete as well as SoulCycle, and vice versa. And so we need to be careful not to get pulled into this trap. But I do think that where virtual will be really interesting is like this hybrid model where you have your brick and mortar CrossFit New England, but then CrossFit New England offers its members some type of something to engage with them if they're on the go or whatever. They're going to have something there. Maybe it's 20 workouts they have pre-recorded. Who knows what it is? But I think they're going to have. But it shouldn't become a key component of their business model. It should be an alternative addition to like the value add.
I like that. Yeah, I think we're totally aligned on the vision of what's going to come out of this. And to your point, like they'll come out of it with something, but I don't know what that something is. Like my wife, Heather, is like, hey, like I kind of like this Zoom thing because there's times like I'm trying to drop the kids off from school, go get a workout in, come back and be able to like get all this other stuff done. It's like she's busy throughout the day. And like if I could just like come back to the house and be able to do it at the house with like, but in a group dynamic, she's like, there would be something there. So it's going to be a piece of it, but it's not going to, I think everyone is like thinking, as you said, like spinning it up into a big part, a top line on the business plan. I think that's misguided.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. I think one thing that I do think we have going for us, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. When we build out our model, we originally started off like bigger is better, just like, most CrossFit gyms, bigger is better, bigger is better. And then over time, we're like, hey, maybe smaller, more optimized space, more kind of shifting towards what Orange Theory had done, right? Yep. As an example. But now, right, it's really interesting because I imagine the average CrossFit is, let's just say like 4,000 square feet. And I imagine the average CrossFit has like 150 members, let's just say, right? So from a space perspective, they should be more than fine. And so I'm curious if CrossFit gyms will actually have a unique advantage because they're more warehouse-based and more big space, smaller class, compared to like an Orange Theory or an F45 or a SoulCycle that was based on smaller space, more people. So I'm curious your thoughts on that. Do you think actually the more strength and conditioning, bigger box gyms might actually be able to come out of this and thrive because the Orange Theories won't be able to accommodate and maybe hit the revenue potential they needed to? I'm just curious your thoughts there. You know what I mean?
So you're saying like when people come out of this, they're going to want to be social and they're going to flock to the in real life stuff. And then basically there's a cap to how many people Orange Theories can get in the door, whereas we can
accommodate more. Or in Orange Theory, they might not even be able to sustain because their model was built on accommodating 30 people per class. But if that number now drops to 15 and their rents and expenses,
I see what you're saying.
Franchise fees stay the same, I'm curious how many of them will leave compared to traditional CrossFit. Because how many CrossFit gyms do you know that are like at peak capacity every class all the time? Very few. And so I'm curious if that actually plays in our favor moving forward.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know the business model of Orange. I've actually never even been to an Orange Theory. I've been to a Barry's boot camp,
Yeah.
and very similar in terms of the business model, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Those are in a lot more prominent locations. They're more in like retail fronts. It's like they might be running more. To your point, if during this time, if they lose X number of percentage of their membership, and by the way, I don't think that they have the loyalty that CrossFit gyms do. So I don't think people are paying while they're not going to a Barry's boot camp or an Orange Theory, something like that.
No,
That's
they're
just
not.
yes, because it's transactional. It's like you go in, you come out, you say hi to the coach, you have your coach that you like, but no one's building really strong relationships. We have people that have not taken this. Every CrossFit gym has this going on right now, where people are not doing the Zoom classes. They're just continuing their membership out of support for what we stand for what we've done over. I mean, that's just so cool, and that's honestly that's the reason that we're able to stay alive more than anything else, is because of those members. And I think that that's the massive difference between what we do and what they do. Is we've created this community.
The allegiance. And
Yeah.
I'm curious. So speaking of the word, I'm curious, in the next, I don't know, 6 months, do you think the brand value, do you think CrossFit, the term, will, I'm curious where do you see CrossFit affiliates going? Do you think there's going to be de-affiliation? Do you think they're not going to see the value in $3,000 because they're struggling? What percent of CrossFit gyms do you think might go out of business? 20%? I'm just curious on that front.
Yeah. When this first happened, I thought that a big percentage of gyms might go away. But to the point of the support that they're getting from their communities, I don't think we're going to see as much of a shrinkage as we might have seen otherwise.
Yeah.
If it was true economics and people were not paying while they weren't there, I think it would have been big. I think it would have been a massive change for the CrossFit community, because we're small businesses. The average small business only has 27 days of free cash flow to pay for expenses. That means that if revenue stop coming in and expenses stay, they're out of business in a month. So I get it. You can furlough employees and that can extend. You can look for rent relief and that can extend it. But we're bumping up against 3 months right now as we speak. We're getting pretty thin. So had members not stepped up the way that they have in our space, I think we would have seen, potentially a quarter to a third of the gyms go away.
Yeah.
And from the little bit of research that we've done, it seems like the majority of those are going to be first and second year affiliates. They haven't built up the user base and they haven't built up the loyalty from their members. And those are the ones I think are going to get hit the hardest. The ones that have existed in that kind of like 3 to 6 year range seem to be okay. And then the 10-year plus affiliates, from what we've seen, just I think are going to weather the storm, even if the storm goes quite a bit longer than we expected.
Now, did you negotiate with your landlord for rent? And do you think CrossFit gyms do you think CrossFit gyms to remain sustainable will need to have a reduction or adjustment in rent because their revenue potential might be decreased because they can't accommodate as many people in the gym? So have you talked to your landlord, and do you believe? Yeah,
I got this from you. One of our conversations, you were like, have you asked for rent relief? And I was like, what the hell is rent relief? And you walked me through it, so yes. So what we've done is, I think we got, it's either 2 or 3 months where we don't have to pay rent. But then what's going to happen is when we go back, that's going to be added in on top of our regular rent. And it's a fair deal because that's what the bank is doing for their mortgage. So the landlord has a mortgage that they have to pay to the bank. Well, the bank is giving relief to the landlords in that same vein. You don't have to pay a mortgage for 3 months. After that, your mortgage, we're going to take those 3 months and just put it in addition over the next 12 months. So it's going to be a little bit more, but we'll be back in business. Revenue will be coming in. So it's another way, again, of like, you have to survive. You have to survive.
Yeah. And so just on that note too, what we're doing is we're waiting until we get word from our governor in California in particular on when we can reopen. And let's just say in the state of in Massachusetts, for example, they say, I don't know, July 1st. Once they give that in California, then we're going to go back to our landlords and we are going to go negotiate. This is our tactic, and I don't know how it's going to play out. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, I love it.
We haven't paid the last couple months or whatever, right? But then our tactic is, hey, we now have clear communication from Governor Newsom that we could open on this date. We have not been open for this many months, and with these new protocols. So the thing is, I can't go negotiate for my new rent until I understand what are my restrictions going to be. Because if the restrictions aren't that dramatic, then your negotiating power might decrease. But if the restrictions are pretty dramatic, let's just say it's, I don't know,
6 people in the class.
Whatever, right? Yeah. I'm going to go back to my landlord and be like, look, bro.
I don't have revenue.
Right. My revenue potential when I signed this lease was here, right? I estimated $1 million a year. Now it's here. And so that's what we're doing. And I'll keep you apprised of what that looks like. But once we get word of when we can reopen and what the rules are going to be, then we're going to go back and try and say, hey, for us to be here for the next 5, 10, 20 years, whatever, we need to see some adjustments. And I'm hoping they'll be willing to work with us.
Yeah, I think that the take-home message there for any affiliate owners that are listening is that you're a value to your landlord.
Oh yeah,
like you are an asset. You are, and this is important. You are an asset. If you leave, they now have a liability. You're an asset in terms of like you have rent coming in. You are paying. Like they want you to be there. Vacancy cost is a real thing for landlords. That it's really expensive to own a building because they have to continue to pay mortgages and taxes and a lot other stuff. They want you there. They want you there. So don't think that you don't have any bargaining power. I love what Jay's saying. I'm gonna do the same thing.
Yeah. Awesome. And last note, a little bit more financial driven, a little bit more business driven is, I know some of these gym owners gotten some trouble with, not in trouble, I shouldn't say that. It's a challenging time with the PPP because the PPP payroll protection plan is, look, we have a team of accountants and finance guys that are helping us because we're at that size of company where we have someone to help me. If I was owner operated, it'd be a little bit tougher, especially if you did everybody as 1099, which we've been telling people not to do for a long time. But if you 1099'd all your employees, your payroll protection might have shifted. You might not have gotten much, if anything at all.
Yeah.
And so with the PPP, we are looking at it as a loan that needs to be proven to be forgiven. What has your experience been with the PPP, and what advice do you have for any gym owner in particular on that?
My experience has been a lot of ambiguity, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change along the way. So we applied for it really early. We applied for it along with a couple other things, and they were so fast to come out with it that the laws hadn't even, and the regulations hadn't been written yet.
Right.
We were already applying. It's kind of like CrossFit, right? Like we started like competing in CrossFit before the rule book came out.
Right.
So
right.
So we don't even know what the rules are.
Yeah. Like, hey, can you do that?
I don't know. So we applied for it. We did get it. But yeah, now it's like another level of uncertainty again, because honestly, we honestly don't know. It's gotta be the same thing. Like this, there's a very good chance that this is not gonna be forgiven. It's gonna turn into a loan. That's a real threat that we have to be prepared for. We're doing everything we can to be like buttoned up and by the book, but who knows? I mean, it almost seems like once they started handing these things out, they realized that they had to give out way more than they planned. So they made the requirements so much more restrictive to make it a forgivable loan, that I think a lot of people are not going to be able to do it. And it is going to be a loan, and the government's going to get their money back.
Yeah. I think, the big takeaway from what you just said is you got to go do your homework. If you're a gym owner out there and you took money from the government through the PPP, you have to understand two major things. Number one is it's payroll protection plan. So it's not to be used, only a small percentage of it can be used for rent and expenses and whatnot. It needs to be used to pay people instead of them going on unemployment. So we got to look at the heart of the deal. And then secondly, it's a loan at a 1% interest that's paid off over 2 years that needs to be proven to be forgiven. And I think that you're hitting the nail on the head. There's a lot of, if this deal got struck at midnight on a Thursday and they released it on Friday, and there was a lot of, stuff to figure out. And I'm not blaming that on anybody, right? They're just trying to get work done. But I think for any owner that has it, one thing that I'm doing, and I don't know if you are as well, any money we're using from PPP, we're assuming that's money that we would have spent anyways. Because if it isn't forgiven, we're not going to be shooting ourselves in the foot that you go and spend frivolously. Is that kind of where you're attacking it?
The honest answer is we have a gym manager that's kind of taking the lead on this. So I am not I don't have the up to date on the exact requirements, but my understanding is that it 80% of it needs to be used for payroll in the next 80 days or something like that.
No, it's 60. It's through June 3rd. It's through the end of June.
Yeah. So that's why we were able to bring all of our coaches back to 100%. That's the reason we did that. Is because we have to.
Yeah, it's very interesting times.
And we have to in a good way. It's like, what the government's doing there, I believe, is a really good. They're protecting a lot of the employees instead of what they did in 2008 and 2009, where they just gave hundreds of millions of dollars to CEOs of corporate banks. That does nothing to help out the economy at all. These guys got severance packages when they should have been going to jail. It's as opposed to this, it's going right back to the workers, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot more to unpack. I think you and I should keep discussing. I'm excited to hear what will come out of this. I think as an entrepreneur, maybe you could speak to this. You talk about inflection points and this is an inflection point for everybody, meaning it's a moment, it's a make or break. And to your point, if you're a hobbyist, if you're in the wrong business, maybe it's guiding you towards where you should be going. And maybe that wasn't to be a gym owner. Maybe it is, right? But if you're an entrepreneur, I can't help but be fired up and excited right now. And, is that kind of how you're feeling too? Through the chaos, there's opportunity?
So, yeah, I love that, Jay. So I was kind of saying when this thing first happened, it brought me right back to the first 6 months to a year of being an entrepreneur, where you are fighting for your survival. And it is an adrenaline rush of everything. There was a 2-week period where I didn't leave. I was I didn't leave my computer because I was so, I beautiful mind, the whiteboard and put up all this stuff. And it was constant. And I loved it. I loved it.
Because your back was up against the wall, man, and you got to overcome the adversity. Yeah, I get it.
So I was scared at the beginning, and I got to the point where I didn't cry. Not that there's anything wrong, but I got close. I was emotional. I thought I was going to lose the business.
Yeah.
And then it was the point where it was all of a sudden it flipped. It does. Maybe if you don't make the games one year, and you're pissed off, you're sad, and then and then the switch flips, and you're damn it, let's go. Let's do this. And that's kind of what it was. It was scary. Oh my gosh, this woe is me. And all of a sudden it flips. It's let's go. I have, 30 employees. We have, 380 members at CFNE and all across all the other gyms. It's not just about me anymore. I gotta bust it. And man, I loved being back up against the wall again. I loved it.
Yeah.
Also because you, me, who've been around a little bit, we've kind of diversified. There's a lot of different things that you have your family that I know you care so much about, AMRAP mentality. And, you have your, all these other things that you're looking to do, from the podcast and all the other things. And also now it's narrow focus. It's get the business, make the business survive. So I thrive having multiple things going on at once. That's the way my brain works. I love coaching elite athletes. I love coaching at my affiliate. I love running my affiliate. I love running multiple affiliates. I love being as good at that as I freaking can be. I like writing books. I like having podcasts. I like having comp train. I like doing all these different things. But for a month, it was singular focus.
Yeah.
And
there's something to be said about it.
man, like for a short time, I loved it a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched the team step up. I watched it was really, and I was talking about this the other day, and I'm sure, I mean, you and I probably align on this really well. I think overcoming adversity is really important in life, and you could overcome it in so many different ways and through workouts and whatnot. But if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, and you get through COVID, right, and you thrive out of it, imagine the confidence that you've built knowing that you went up with your back against the wall, your business was in this dire straits, and you and your team navigated it accordingly. That's going to be something that, especially for a younger entrepreneur, we're probably not going to have to overcome again, hypothetically, right? And I just think it does a lot of powerful things for the business owner, because that's something you could always fall back on in a tough time. I'm sure you've probably seen that with athletes, of course, but it plays the same thing with business.
I've told my team, we're going to be telling stories about this time forever.
Yeah.
Like, this is it, guys. We're in it. This is where everything that we do gets put to the test. And if we come out of this thing, with the right mentality, with the right approach, and feel like we did the right thing, we're going to be telling stories about how this developed us more than anything else ever would. Let's have some hindsight in the present moment. Like, this is a really powerful time. Let's lean into that adversity.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it. Well, Ben, I really appreciate your time. We've dove into a number of different things, but I think your perspective is always really appreciated. I want to get back on once we get back open. I'm curious what that looks like. Right now we're kind of, I don't want to call it a holding pattern. That's not fair. But, I think it's important to always talk about what we're doing, right? Not hypotheticals. And so we're both kind of waiting for more information. Yeah. That's why I wanted to talk to you about what you did and if you had learned anything from it, because God forbid this happens again. What did we learn from that first time around? Right. And so, if people want to see more of Ben Bergeron, obviously, you have your book, you have your podcast, Comp Train, the gyms. I mean, you said it, but where should people go?
Yeah, I mean, comptrain.co is kind of the thing that people are kind of latching onto. And then personally, it's Ben Bergeron on Instagram.
Beautiful. Well, brother, we really appreciate your time. Before we started recording, I saw the kids jumping out there on the trampoline, so we'll make sure you get back to it. And I look forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks so much, Jay.
All right, talk to you soon.